welcome to another episode of Real Estate Unfiltered with Bridget.
And Angie.
And today it's all about Angie. Yay!
Yay! Well, I think I've had this come across a couple of times just talking with clients.
Well, wait,
recently.
what are we talking about?
I'm telling you.
Oh,
Give me 2 seconds.
Okay, 2 seconds.
Talking to clients recently, and I actually had a borrower in my office that said I called a bank and they told me not to call a mortgage banker. Like he said a broker. I'm not a broker. A broker would be like a mortgage company referring a mortgage to another mortgage company kind of thing. If I can't do it, I broker to a different mortgage company.
Okay.
So I'm not a broker. I'm considered an independent mortgage banker. So I don't have I have the portfolio of a broker, but not that titling, I guess they want to call it. But he's like, I called the bank and they told me not to call an independent mortgage banker. I should just work with the banker and credit union. So I just found that to be interesting that clients are being advised not to do that. So I just thought that'd be a good episode to talk about what I can do versus what banks and credit unions can do, because they're very different. And I feel like some people might have a negative stigma in their head, thinking that independent mortgage bankers are, they cost too much. They their rates are higher, their fees are higher, all these things, to where it makes it like scares consumers to call.
Do you think maybe it's also because they haven't heard of Bank CMG, or if they have, they think they're like an online company?
Maybe, because Bank CMG is new this year, but CMG Home Loans has been around since 1995. So this is our 31st year, in business. So CMG Home Loans has been in business for a while, but our founder and CEO just bought a couple of banks here in Wisconsin, so now he's branching out to Bank CMG. So we do have that titling of a bank, but I'm still under the CMG Home Loans umbrella. So I'm still under the mortgage banker side of the business. I'm not on the bank side. Like, I don't do car loans. I don't do, checking accounts. I don't do depositories. Okay. I just do mortgages. So we have that titling, but we still have the umbrella under the independent mortgage banker side of it, where we still have all of the loan programs that we had at CMG Home Loans, just more of a name change than anything. Because my job has not changed at all.
Right.
Since we converted over, it's just a name change, basically.
Right.
But I don't know if it's because they aren't aware. Because to be quite honest, I have been in all three roles. I started off at a bank when I first started my career in 2015. Started off as a bank. I was there for a while, and then they did some shifting around, and they ended up like dissolving their mortgage department, and they wanted to go to all call centers, and that is not where I strive. I don't do call centers, so I don't want to be a robot behind a computer just answering calls and not being, I like that human interaction, human touch, creating connections with their borrowers. So that's not going to work for me. So I left with the transition out of that position, and then went to a credit union. I was there for a while, and I love that as well. And then I transitioned to that to keep on growing into the independent mortgage banker side. So I feel like people don't know what independent mortgage bankers do, because even I didn't know that.
Correct. I don't know that. And
right.
All I know about CMG is that you have a huge portfolio of different loan options.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I don't know.
Yeah, and I've learned about so many of them, just by being with this company, which truly has helped like rocket my career to where it is now, because I can help people who don't fit in that box of a credit union or a bank, because we have, large portfolio of loans, and we, as I said in other episodes, we work directly with those servicers. We are a direct lender of FHA, we're a direct lender of the VA, of the USDA. Now we are direct through Fannie and Freddie, and we are direct through all of those. We don't have our own like overlays on top of those. We work directly with them, which makes it a little bit more flexible, for people to fit into those boxes. But it opens up more possibilities, because I feel like that is where one of the biggest reasons why I switched was because I wanted to help more people. And I felt like I was being restricted on what I could do, not only with helping my clients, but also just like socially. We were very, like, this podcast, would not exist if I still worked for a bank or credit union, because we weren't allowed to talk about this because they had, all these extra like security protections on top of you, where we didn't have the flexibility to just openly talk to thousands of people,
Mhm.
without it being like a regulatory issue or finding a way to make it, kiboshed. So being able to openly talk to people and express, what mortgage can do and what options we have has really like skyrocketed, my career.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I could say that I would still be here for the podcast.
Right.
You just
Right.
wouldn't
I would
be.
just, I would just have like, so then I do the Bridget show and then it'd just be all about Bridget all the time.
Yeah, that's not fun.
But, but it's moving into this position and learning all of the programs. Like I help your son-in-law allow like the DSCR loans.
Mhm.
I had no idea.
What is a DSCR loan?
So the debt consolidation loan is for investors. And I actually had a client come to me looking for this program when I was at a credit union. I was like, that doesn't exist.
Mhm.
There's no loan out there that qualifies you just on the rent of the property. Sure enough, there is. We have 7 different brokers that do it. Like 7 different, not brokers, 7 different loan programs that offer that. I was like, I had no idea that you could use the rental income of the property you're buying and only use that as qualifying. So your income does not matter. So if you don't, like if you are self-employed, which most people are, if they're in that profession, they don't show income on their taxes because they don't want to pay taxes. So very good accountants who do a very good job make it very hard for borrowers to buy properties because their tax returns don't
Well,
show anything.
I mean, and that's not recommended.
Right. So, but it's there. But to learn that we can use literally just the rent from the property that you're buying, and that's where the loan is written off of. To me, that sounds like, how is that possible?
Yeah, how is that possible?
Like I had no idea. So I just find that to be incredible, and I do quite a few of those now because we have a lot of investors in this area, and that program is amazing. Especially if you are self-employed and your tax returns don't show any income to support you to buy an investment property, with your own income. The DSCR loan uses just the cash flow. So the property has to cash flow. Obviously, it has to have, the rent needs to be at or above your monthly payment.
Yep.
But as long as it does that, you're good to go.
Gotcha.
It has to be an investment. It can't be a second home. It can't be like an Airbnb, or it can't be like, I'm going to buy this and my mom can live in it. It has to be a true investment property. So there are things like, there are certain criteria you have to meet to do that. So it's not for everybody, but for those that it works for, it's incredible.
Yeah. I know the other program that you have that I have been talking with mainly first-time home buyers about would be the renovation loan. Because right now to find a house in a first-time home buyer's price range, I mean, it needs lots of work. And to get that house and then to have the buyer still have money to update, I mean, do the renovation loan.
Yeah, because most of them don't have that money, saved up to be able to do that.
Correct.
It's already tight the way it is when it comes to getting funds for down payment or just closing costs or whatever you have saved up. Like most of them don't have an extra 50 grand laying around to do those repairs. I mean, yeah, you can do them over time.
Yeah.
But I guess it depends on their preference. But yeah, I would get that question a lot also, saying, hey, if I'm approved for, let's say, 175, find a home for 150, can I finance the 175, use a 25 grand extra for my home? I used to have to say no. Like, no, I can only lend to you what the purchase price is, which is true.
Right.
Any loan that you look at, truly you can't, if you're approved for this, but your purchase price is down here, we can't give you that extra money. It has to match the purchase price, which is similar to the renovation loan too. Like your loan, it still matches the purchase price, so we add on top of that the construction part of it for renovation. So then it does offer you. So if you are approved at 200,000 or 175, and the house is 150, odds are you probably have enough income to qualify to cover the renovation part of it. But you can't just give you the money. It has to be through, you have to hire like a contractor to do whatever work that you want to get done. So we can't just say, I want 25 grand to do X, Y, Z. We need a contractor to show that they're going to do that because we're lending you them. And your appraisal is based on you doing those things. You can't tell me you're going to, we give you the money and then you just don't do it, because that's going to be a problem.
So with a renovation loan, do you have 2 different payments, or how does the renovation loan work?
It's a first mortgage only, so it's one payment. It's all lumped in together. So
Okay.
they consider a purchase with a construction rider. So basically, you're buying the property for whatever amount you agree on, and then depending on what your contractors say, we create the renovation loan based on that with a cushion. We always add a cushion to your loan because even with construction loans, things can happen. You know, you start breaking up in walls and you find out a whole bunch of things you weren't even aware are going to be in those walls.
Yep.
You know, or the countertops you wanted to order are no longer available. Just, I mean, there's always these different things that you don't know. So we always budget extra for that. But all of that is written into one loan. We have our own dedicated renovation team that does all of this for me and for the buyer. So we don't really need to do anything. They do all the busy work, all the paperwork, they handle the draws, handle all the things. Like it's basically like once you have a contract, we give it to them and they take it from there.
So the buyer has to find a contractor.
Correct.
And get the quotes, and then everything gets submitted to you
The
or
reno team.
the reno team. Okay.
Yep, and then they take care of it from there.
Is everything, if I were to write an offer with a renovation loan, is everything the same? Like, or if I'm the listing agent and I get one with a renovation offer, you know, what's different? Is it, you know, government backed? Is it, you know, are there certain things that we have to look out for, or is it just your standard loan?
There are FHA renovation loans. There's also VA renovation loans, and then conventional renovation loans. So there are a couple different types of renovation loans. I know WIDA also offers those. We do not offer the rental loan through WIDA, which is the Wisconsin Housing. It's the Wisconsin bond loan, which is a fantastic personal home buyer program. But anyways, I digress. The government loans do require specific verbiage written into the offer that it is a renovation loan.
Okay.
Conventional loans do not require that. So they don't have to, but the thing is, it's important to tell the seller that your buyer is doing a renovation loan, because they have to get people to come in and do quotes for whatever work they want done. And that has to be done prior to closing. So the seller has to be aware that, you know, XYZ company is going to come out and do a quote for a new kitchen or whatever. Like, they need to know that they are going to have people coming to the home to do quotes. So you can't do renovation without the seller knowing that you're doing it, because they have to go to the home and do, you know, get their quotes
and
blueprints and all, depending on how involved they want to get on it. So it's important to know that, one, people have to come to the house, and two, those loans take about 45 days to close.
That was going to be my next question.
Versus a 30-day close, because there's so much more involved on the back end to get that renovation loan set up and ready to go. Like, I did ask my renovation team, and it said that unless the borrower already has people lined up to do the work prior to offer acceptance, 30 days is going to be really tight to me, because there's so much involved. Because we have to, you know, make sure that they are insured contractors, they have to do, you know, all this stuff. So it has to be a lot of the back end stuff. So it does take a little bit longer. So that'd be a selling point too, or a sticking point, I guess, you know, in this market,
to make
depending
sure
on what the sellers are. But if the home's been on the market for a hot minute, they may be okay with that.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that definitely does seem the way to go.
Yeah.
I mean, 30 days closing is obviously preferred, but what's, you know, 15 more days?
Right.
Unless, you know, home sales. Yeah.
And you can always close earlier. So I would always encourage you to say, like, on or before X date. So if everything is done ahead of time, I'm not saying that we can't do it earlier, but they're just saying that to be realistic with your timelines, give us a little bit more of a cushion. And then if we're done early, then we'll close early. You know, but if we're not, then at least everybody is on the same understanding. Because if it is a situation where the seller is buying a new home, they don't have an extra 15 days. If they've already agreed to 30 days, they're going to be real mad when they say we need 10 more days to get this done. You know, so you want to make sure you set a realistic expectation up front. And then if you can do it sooner, then that's great. You know, but it's better to do it front than because then that creates a domino effect. Everything kind of goes downhill from there.
Absolutely. Again, it's just communication.
Which we've been talking about like every week.
I know, because it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Communication. I mean,
yeah.
It is like the easiest thing to do.
But no one does it. They're afraid. People are afraid. Like, I have severe call reluctance. Like, I cannot, I don't know what it is in me, but I have like a severe anxiety of calling people. But if I'm working on a transaction, I have no problem calling you and saying, hey, here's what's going on, because is not considered like a cold call. Like we're in the middle of a deal together, so I have no problem calling and talking to people or texting or whatever. But for somebody who has a high, like a feel, I can't even call like the restaurant to place an order for carryout. Like I make my husband do it, or if I'm with my mom, like, "Babe, mom, can you call and see what the wait time is for Chili's?" Like I don't want to call people. Like I'm a grown woman, but I can't. I hate calling.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. I don't like calling the doctor. I don't want to do any of it. I will.
Yeah.
I just, forget my words and then I fumble and, my speech impediment gets even worse at that point. So having that and an impediment with speech does not make it makes things a lot harder.
Yeah, for sure.
But even having that though, I still call because the communication that is going to be. Because if you address it ahead of time, it makes things way easier.
Or hey, shoot a text or an email, like anything to keep that communication going. Because communication lately,
nothing worse than like sending 4 emails, 6 text messages, and 3 phone calls and not getting a response back. Like, did you get that? Oh yeah, I got it. Like, were
not
you
a mind reader.
Say something like
not a mind
usually
reader.
if I send you something, I want a response, whether
Correct.
it be because even if you email me like, here is this, like I see received.
Mm-hmm.
That way you know I got it.
Yep.
Because sometimes like, well, did it go to junk? Did it go to spam? Like, did I email to the wrong person? Because that's happened before too. Like you type in the name Bridget, and if I have like 3 Bridgets, like, did I put the wrong person?
Right. Same. I'll check my sent folder, like when I send over something to an agent, and I don't hear back. Yeah. I'm like, did I send it to the wrong person? Yeah. And I go to my sent folder, and I'm like, no, I sent it. They either didn't get it, or they're just not going to respond and think that I'm a mind reader and they got it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's.
I'm hoping we can hear off of yours. I'm sure we can,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. So, gosh, communication is just so hard lately. It seems.
Mm-hmm.
It just frustrates me. Just respond anyway. You don't have to call. Just receive.
Just say received
on an email or a text. Say, hey, I received this. Perfect. Thank you. Like.
Yeah. Or just send like, because you can react to messages too, on text messages. So give me the heart or give me the thumbs up, which, just something to acknowledge that you received it.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So with the renovation loan, does the work have to be done before closing?
No, that happens after.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah, everything happens after closing, but needs to be set up prior.
Okay.
And then there's usually like a 90-day window to get it done, depending on what it is. If it's during like the winter months in Wisconsin, clearly you can't do roofing inside and everything. You can't do exterior work in the winter time, so they allow an extension for that because of the weather. But it's usually within like 90 days they want that done.
Okay. Now, here's a question, asking for a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Can I refi and do a rental loan?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can.
Mm-hmm. Yep, because sometimes people think that they can, if they refinance, if the equity is not in your home to do that, like you can't do, because some people just do like a cash out refinance, they hit the cash out. But if you've only owned your home for a couple of years, or if there's not enough money in there to do what you want to do, you can't do that. So you can do a refinance into a renovation loan as well. Because then the renovation loan, the appraisal is subject to appraisal, meaning you tell them what you're doing, you give them the specs and blueprints that you got from the contractor, and then they say, okay, based on what you're showing me, your value should be this.
Okay.
And then we lend, based off of that. Like you can't just say it's going to cost $100,000, and the appraiser's like, we don't see where that money's coming from. So then you have a problem. You want to make sure it's realistic. But then the appraisal will come in to almost like mirror the work being done, and that's how the equity appears.
Mm-hmm. And then so if I were to refinance into a renovation loan, it's one payment. It's not two.
Correct.
Like if I were to go out and get a home equity.
Correct. It's not a home equity.
Okay.
Correct.
Interesting. Good to know. So I mean, even for first-time home buyers that just want to maybe get into a home, and knowing that they can refinance down the road into a rental loan.
Yeah.
And then that way they can still be competing with their close date or their deadlines.
Right.
That way.
But this is another segue too into how independent mortgage bankers differ from banks and credit unions, is because we have programs like this. We have things that they may not have even heard of. So then, and that helps with, you as a buyer's agent or even as a listing agent, like to know that we have loan programs that will probably meet the needs of that home, you
Right.
know, that other lenders may not offer. So independent mortgage bankers are great that way because we do just mortgage. You know, that is what we do. So we have a whole lot of, like I said, we have over 100 loan programs that specialize in literally every aspect of your business. Like we can do bank statement loans for people who are self-employed whose tax returns don't show any income. We can do ones based on your 1099s. We can do self-employed loans. You know, we can do all these different loans that most banks don't even know exist. So the fact that they're trying to like fear mongle people into thinking that to call us, I find it to be quite hilarious because it's like either you don't know what I can do or you know that what I can do is probably better than what you can offer. So you don't want your client to shop you because you're afraid that, you know, somebody else is going to do a better job at it.
Well, and maybe they think you're just an online company and not
Right.
realize that you're local. Like
Right.
you're here in Dodge County.
Right. I'm a real
know.
person who I meet clients in this exact office. Like I meet with clients all the time, you know, and not only that, but people can call me. Like I was camping over Memorial Day weekend and I had an agent call and say, "Hey, I need you to help me like right now. Like I have a buyer that's put an offer in. He's like, we need to get this." I was like, "Okay, I'll do it right now." Like on a Saturday afternoon, driving through Door County, trying to find reception in in that area. It's not easy. But I did find one spot where I had, you know, all buyers said, "Please help the truck. I need 5 minutes." You know, but I worked on it quick while I was in the truck, you know, and then I just shot it over and then that guy's offer got accepted. You know,
Right.
like
Yeah. And most banks, they work the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And they're not on weekends because I
Right.
have run into that with
Yeah.
buyers too. Like, hey, I need this information.
I've helped you with your clients who
Yeah.
have that problem where
Yeah.
you can't get a hold of the lender. You know, I had another borrower where her lender was going on vacation. She said, "Okay, well, I'll be gone for 10 days. I'll catch up with you when I'm back." Like 10 days? That's a long time. Like I go on vacation also, but I have an assistant that helps me while I'm on my vacation, you know, or I have my tablet with me where I can work if I absolutely have to, if I have service. But I think it's also the availability is a huge thing too. Is we, you know, people say, "Okay, can I meet you at 6 p.m.?" Sure.
Right. You know, and I lately am a big believer in schedules, not
Yeah.
being available 24/7. Um, so do I expect a banker or anybody to work 24/7? Absolutely not. But I do think that, you know, in the industry, like you have to know, you know, your clients mainly work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5,
Most
whatever.
of them
So,
do.
right, exactly. You know, so at least offer hours outside of that range,
Yeah.
you know, to kind of coordinate. You don't have to work 24/7, you know, because I have set boundaries in place, you know, and try to stick to a schedule.
Right.
But that's not saying like if something urgent doesn't pop up that needs my attention right away, doesn't mean I'm gonna say, "Oh, I'm off the clock," you know, but
Right. But my hours, I usually work when agents work because that's when you need us.
right.
You know, you don't need me at 9 a.m. on a Monday morning, like, or whatever. Like, you need me after hours, you need me on the weekends, like when you're working with your clients. So it's important to be available
Correct.
when people need you.
Correct. And that's, you know, I do have my office hours, but if something urgent were to come up, I'll deal with it, you know, when it's my off hours.
Right.
Because it's urgent. So it needs attention right now. If it's something that can wait till the next business day or, you know, whatever it may be, well, then yeah, it's going to wait
Right.
because it's not urgent.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, it's just there's quite a wide difference between the two that I think it needs to be more understood. You know, and I've created quite a few relationships with banks and credit unions. Like I have people that I work at, you know, especially in Dodge County, I've like networked my way into a couple of different, you know, banks and credit unions. I said, "Hey, if you have a client that you can't help, I mean, it may happen because a lot of times, like the things I can do, they can't do." I said, "Please call me before you say no." You know, I want to be that resource to you and your borrower to where you don't just say, "Oh, sorry, I can't help you," and then they just walk away, you know, defeated because they can't do what they were thinking they could do. Like, reach out to me. I can't do literally everything, you know, but if I can't help you, I'll let you know. But before you say no, I'm happy to be a second option or a resource to you to help your borrowers. That way, you know, we can help brainstorm how we can make this happen. So I do work collaboratively with other lenders because of that reason.
Right. Well, you have to.
Right.
The one thing that I just recently learned, and I didn't know that I ran into, is when I was asking for a seller credit for a buyer, and it was a decent sized seller credit, and he was pre-approved through a credit union. They could only use the seller, what, 3,000 was
3,000
it?
are the 10 that they were going to give them.
Yeah, I was like, wait, seriously?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that about a credit union, that you can't utilize a full seller credit.
Yeah, because they don't have enough, because the seller credit can only be used towards closing costs and prepaids. Seller credit cannot be used towards towards a down payment. So that has to come from you or a gift or whatever you do. But the seller credit cannot cover that. And it can also, seller credit can cover out of pocket expenses, like if you had a home inspection, if you pay for the appraisal, like they can cover like that kind of stuff. But that's it. So if the credit union doesn't have enough fees to cover that, which you think that's a good thing, they don't got their fees are so low that they can't use the whole credit. However, our fees are also not very high either, but we can buy the interest rate down.
That's huge.
And that's massive. Like, so we have the ability to not really like create fees. So we have abilities to find creative ways to use that seller credit. And I've had it before where the seller credit was so large, like we've already bought the rate down by a bunch. I still have extra money. And I was like, oh, well, we can use this because you can pay your mortgage insurance premium up front also. So
for a full year?
No, for this one, for FHA, we pay for the upfront mortgage insurance premium up front. Because usually you finance it, we just pay for it up front. You can even pay your mortgage insurance premium up front, and then you don't have MI, period. So there are ways to do that. They may not offer that, but you have ways to do. So we had to get creative and do that. But you have to be able to find ways to be able to utilize it because you don't want to lose the money. So if the seller's going to give him 10 grand, and they can only use 3,000 for their closing costs, then we would have had, $7,000 that we could use to buy the interest rate down. Like that's massive. Like just think of how much money that borrower would save per month by using that money to buy the rate down.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think people understand the power of interest rates, and how a seller credit to buy the rate down can make a huge difference in your financial picture for your mortgage.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if you had a choice between a $10,000 purchase price reduction or a $10,000 seller credit, take that credit all day long. Because yes, your purchase price is more, but your payment will be a lot less. I can guarantee you it'll be a lot less. And I'd be happy to run numbers for anybody that wants to know, like, what does that truly look like to me? Because it's eye-opening.
It is, because how many years has it been? Always ask for a price reduction. Always ask, because that's going to help you. But that really only changes your payment.
But do people realize that a price reduction also affects future home sale values? Right?
Yeah.
Because appraisers go off of home sales.
Yeah.
If you're reducing the price of the home, you're selling it for less, that affects future value for other homes when they use that property as a comparable sale.
Correct.
Right?
Right. But I don't think buyers are really.
But I'm just saying, like, on the selling side.
Yeah, for sure.
If you reduce a purchase price, for whatever reason, that's going to affect the values of other homes in the area that are trying to sell.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think anybody thinks of that, though. No. Because appraisers use, okay, well, we listed the house for $295, but we sold it for $250. Okay, well, they're going to use the $250 as a comparable sale because that was the value at that time.
Correct. Yes.
So it's important to understand that can affect future values for homes in the neighborhood as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And then, seller credits, it just seems like a lot of people don't want the seller credit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, take the seller credit.
And there are limits on how much the seller can give you. You can't just give you 50 grand to do whatever you want with. Like there are limits. Conventional loans, government loans, they all have different limits on how much seller can contribute. So when you're in an offer situation and you're asking for a credit, always contact your lender to say, hey, what is the max seller credit we can get on this? Because if you exceed that, we can't use it.
Correct.
So that's money that we can't touch, so even if we were able to get creative, if you exceed that threshold, like for example, FHA is 6% of the purchase price. If you exceed that by getting them 7%, like that 1% we cannot use. The loan won't pass compliance. You can't do that. So it's important to talk to your lender, especially as an agent, asking them, what is the max seller contribution we can get for this?
Yeah, I usually always call, you, if I'm working with you or any other lender, to say, okay, we're looking at a seller credit. This is what we're thinking. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Like, what's the max? Because you don't want to exceed it, because then you can't use it. So you got this acceptance for it, but then you have to like, okay, well, just kidding. I can't use it.
You got a seller credit you can't use.
Right.
Congratulations.
Right. So if you go through a home inspection, and let's say, you need to get a new roof on the house and it's going to cost 30 grand. Well, the seller can't give you a 30 grand seller credit to cover for that. Like, it doesn't work that way. Like, there's limits on how much you can get for a credit. And not only that, but that credit, like that 30 grand, isn't going to go in your bank account.
Correct.
You don't get that money. The seller credit helps offset your cash to close, but it doesn't, they can't give you money at closing.
Right. Yeah. If you want the money for the roof, if you want the full 30,000, we're going to say, yeah, you're not going to get that on a seller credit, but you can hold it in escrow. So, but holding it in escrow, it is a little bit more for sellers to do that.
Because there's fees, I think, to create that account, right?
Correct. Yep. And then you also have to add a buffer. So the seller's having to do more than 30,000.
If you have a signed contract, I don't think they require a buffer. If you have quotes, they do.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, because if we don't require it, and so if it came up on a home inspection, but the appraiser did not note it, then the lender is not involved. So then that's done strictly on the seller side with their title company.
Correct.
But I want to say, and we can confirm that with our title reps too, but I'm almost confident that if you have a contract signed with whoever's doing the work, you will need to escrow that amount, because you have a signed contract saying it's going to be this amount. If you have quotes, they escrow 1.5 times the quote, because quotes can change.
Yes, they can. Yeah, I definitely want to check on that, because even if you have a signed contract and you tear something off, because then what?
That's true. If there's, if all the boards under your roof are rotted, then that wasn't forecasted into your. So yeah, I guess I'd be curious to see how but there is, it's not free to create an escrow holdback, but it is a way to continue forward with the transaction if you can't get somebody in to do it prior to closing, which would be ideal. But sometimes people, they're just busy. Contractors just don't have, they can't shop, but they don't have time to do it, immediately.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. But there are options. But yeah, if you're a buyer out there and, the seller won't reduce the price, but they're willing to give you a seller credit, take it.
Yeah. But then make sure you connect with their agent or with the lender to make sure that they're not exceeding the allowable limit, because that's important to know.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Communicate.
Oh, shocker. Came back to communication again.
It always does.
Yeah. So I guess it's just a PSA to anybody that may have been deterred or may not even know what an independent mortgage banker is. That's what we do. We find creative solutions for home financing needs. Like, yes, we also offer conventional loans. We offer the WIDA. Like, I feel like a lot of credit unions don't do government-backed loans either anymore.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of them not. Some of them offer WIDA, but I don't think they do like government-backed loans. But either way, we offer more than just the basic mortgages, and being that I am under the umbrella of bank CMG, I have pricing that is very competitive to other banks and credit unions. So they think, oh, your rates are going to be a lot higher. Well, I kind of get the best of both worlds. I get all the programs and I get the better pricing. So I have more flexibility to help people. And not only that, when I was talking to that bar with the other day, it's like when I called other lenders, they had no idea how to even answer my questions. I was like, oh, that's interesting. He's like, because what you're telling me, like, no one told me any of this. So again, it's the education piece. And then I'm not saying they're not educated, but having a wider portfolio, I have a wider understanding of what's available out there and what options we can do to be creative.
Right.
So it's just shocking, I guess.
Yeah. And and I let my buyers and even sellers know that when they're selling and they're looking for a new home, even if they have a lender, it doesn't hurt to get, a second opinion.
Right.
Because I always say it's the educational piece. it's let's talk to another lender because they may say something that you're like, oh, well, that other lender didn't tell me. I wonder if I should ask them.
Right.
And so then you can go back and forth. And because not everybody knows the same stuff.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we're not all, I mean, I'm not going to claim to know everything.
Really?
I mean, but the thing is though, if I don't know it, I will tell you I don't know it. I won't just blow smoke and say, oh yeah, like I will figure it out because I have a huge team behind me that, I can ask literally any department and they can get me an answer, usually within, just usually same day, depending on what time it is. But, I have the resources to get the answers too, which I think is really.
Yeah, because I do utilize you a lot when I'm out with buyers and stuff. And, I ask them questions about certain things and they're like, well, I don't know. And I'll be like, I'll reach out to the lender that, I recommend and see what I can do. And then I get the information from you and then I report it back to my buyer and they're like, oh, really? And I'm like, here's Angie's card.
Right.
At least just call her and talk over a couple things. You don't have to use her, but at least get the knowledge.
Yeah.
And get a second opinion.
Is you're not going to, you're not going to get along to everybody that you meet, because I think it's a personality thing too, just to find somebody that you match with. Because I've had other people come to me that had a different lender, but they didn't like the vibe that they got from them. It's like every time I would contact them, I got this feeling like I was like inconveniencing them. Like it can all just be based on, maybe your vibes just aren't the same, because you can't get along with everybody. Everybody's personalities, they're not all going to match. So it's important to find somebody that you're comfortable, working with, and that's going to, because as we've talked in many other episodes, this is a very emotional process. Sometimes it goes through super smooth. That's, like the unicorn of the deal, but sometimes there are things that come up and a lot of emotions get tied into that. And if you don't have somebody that you feel confident or comfortable, that's like saying, hey, please talk me through this, I'm freaking out. Like you want that relationship to be able to talk it through, because then it's going to make you feel more at ease going through this process. You don't want somebody that makes you feel like an inconvenience or a burden to them, or you're the one almost only 200,000. They prefer to work with people who are $500,000 clients. Okay, well then, if that's your clientele, then what are you doing with our first-time home buyers who need that guidance? I don't want a client to feel like they're an inconvenience to me because the loan amount's not $1 million. Like I don't care. I really don't. Like when I work with a client, I don't care what your loan amount is. I'll give you $100,000, I'll give you $2 million. I don't care. I treat you the exact same way, and like we walk through it the exact same way. If people who are more on the higher end may not be first-time home buyers and may have a little bit more education under the belt, on that process. But I love first-time home buyers.
I do too. And I do hear that a lot. Like when they reach out, they're like, well, I'm only pre-approved for 200, so I'm not going to be, make you get a lot of money. If I can talk today,
right?
But I don't care. Like that doesn't bother me. Like
right.
I will treat you.
Yeah, helping people is the biggest.
Yeah, and I like to educate. That's why I really like first-time home buyers too, because I like to educate. And then there's even though buyers that haven't bought in 20 plus years, and I mean that's a little bit more difficult to educate because like, well, that's not how it was, So you got to get over that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, educating them, like I don't want them to walk away and go, I don't know anything.
Right.
I want them to feel comfortable and know the process and understand what's coming next, what's to be expected, for both buyers and sellers. And if you're selling a $50,000 house, $100,000, or an $800,000 house, you're all going to be treated the same.
Correct.
And I'm going to work with you. It doesn't matter how big the sale is. That's
right. And we've talked about this before too, not on the podcast, but just in general, like they don't teach you this in school. Like so don't come into this thinking, I'm such an idiot. I don't know what I'm talking. Like no one taught you this. Like I was a first-time home buyer. I had no idea about it. And that's how I got into lending, actually, was because of that process. Like you don't know any of this stuff. So unless somebody is there to actually help you and educate you in the process, so we don't expect you to know anything. Like yes, your parents can help talk to you about it, or you can see things online, you watch TikToks, YouTubes, whatever, like they can get you a general idea. But until you're actually in the process of it, you have no idea what to expect. And I wouldn't expect you to know what to expect.
Right. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like we're here to help educate you because we see it every day, but these people don't see it every day.
Yep.
You know, like this is our career. Just like if you went to the doctor, like, okay, yeah, your nurse sees this every day, but it's the same thing. You know, everybody has a profession that's different. So
yeah, nope. I always tell my buyers and sellers there's no dumb question.
right.
And please feel free to ask it multiple times because I do throw a lot of information
Yeah.
at them, and
Yeah, you don't want to overwhelm them,
well,
but
I
you
do
also don't want.
overwhelm.
But the thing is, but you're not trying to overwhelm
Right.
them, but you
Yeah.
also want to make sure that they are educated and informed on what their process is.
Mhm.
So more often than that, you do forget, and that happens too when I have clients come in for like approvals.
Mhm.
I say, okay, if you have any questions, let me know, and they don't have any. I said, when you're driving home, text me because you're gonna get questions when you're driving back home. Like that's when everything just like, oh, I forgot to ask this. Like, okay, then text me.
Yep.
But it's ask every question you can think of.
Mhm. And there's no
Honestly.
dumb question. And if you ask it 5 times, then ask it 5 times. I want you to know the answers and be comfortable in what I give you for information. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it does not matter. It's not an inconvenience to me. It's not nothing.
Mm-mm.
I just want to make sure that you're informed.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I got my 2 cents out. I got my I just want people to know that there's other options out there. So if you can't get a loan through who you're working with currently, or you want a second opinion, or if you've been told don't call them because they're not going to help you, like just know that I'm a real person. I'm not a 1-800 number. You work directly with me the entire time before, during, and after. Like I help throughout the entire process. And we may have offer solutions that you wouldn't even think to ask.
Yeah.
So just reach out, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have, or just kind of show you what we can do. I mean, today was a very high level overview of what we do. We offer so many different programs that are, they're not going to be perfect for everybody, obviously. But it's just a matter of narrowing it down and just knowing that there are options out there. And that's why I moved to where I did, is to be able to offer solutions to those who need, that need the help. They need those solutions to be able to make homeownership a reality, which is my ultimate goal.
Yeah. And I mean, there's options out there for realtors too.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go with, the biggest name out there. I mean, your smaller realtors that,
They hold more passion too, I think.
yeah, because they're not so overwhelmed with so many clients that they can give a little bit more passion, a little bit more time with
Right.
you. And so, yeah, there's options for lenders, there's options for agents. And we always preach,
Call around, interview people, talk to them. Like if you're not the right fit, that's fine.
yeah,
Like I said,
absolutely.
you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Like
Correct.
it's just not going to work that way, and you have to understand that also.
Correct.
Like people just, you want a good vibe, you want to mesh well with people. So it's just finding who's going to work best for you, and just knowing that there are other options out there. And I strongly encourage you to call around,
Absolutely.
ask those questions.
Absolutely. I encourage that as well. There's
Yeah.
many different options for many different jobs, careers,
Everywhere. Doctors. I mean, you call multiple mechanics for your car. You call multiple people for your roof. You call multiple doctors for your
second opinions.
Yeah, like this is no different.
Yeah, but I feel like people, whoever they contact, that's it. Like they don't go elsewhere, and then some of them regret that. Call for second opinions.
Yeah.
I mean, I go on listing appointments, and I'm the second, third, or fourth realtor that they've interviewed. And hey, if you like,
right,
how I do things, but you're not happy with the price I give or anything like that, have a conversation with me. Let's work it out. Let's figure out how we can meet your goals. So same goes for lending.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Call around, get second opinions. But we're always here to help.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.